Valentina Shevchenko is one of the most dominant UFC fighters in history of the UFC, or in the history, not just the UFC, the history of MMA. When you look at her body of work, she has 6 title defenses in the flyweight division. So she's basically decimated all of her opponents in flyweight. So there's really no competition for her in her division. I mean, her next contender is Taila Santos, but the way she dismantled names like Jennifer Maya and especially the Priscilla Cachoeira fight, that fight definitely opened my eyes to how much damage and how much destruction she can put on another female. Like fighting Valentina Shevchenko, being a female and being in that division and having some relatively decent skills would make, honestly, if I was to fight Valentina Shevchenko and I was a female and I was 125 pounds and maybe I was kind of competent in terms of like striking and jiu-jitsu and even wrestling, I would be terrified to fight Valentina Shevchenko. Like, even though I'm a grown-ass male and like weigh like 200 pounds, I still wouldn't want to fight her. She whooped my ass. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how you know that a fighter is great, because she fights at 125 and she beat up a lot of guys. But, you know, obviously she probably wouldn't beat up no. She definitely wouldn't beat up an MMA fighter that's a guy. But, I mean, that's to be expected. Like, there's really no accolades in beating up like some fucking unknown, like fucking guys that don't even train. But, anyways, moving on. If you just look at her career and her body of work, like, it's just insane how much work she's actually done. And then if you look at her fights with Amanda Nunes, which is at bantamweight, well, we're gonna get into her fights at bantamweight a little bit more as well. But that fight with Amanda Nunes, the first fight was arguably close, but I gave it to Amanda. I gave the first fight to Amanda, more so because, you know, she just touched her a little bit more and she was able to get those takedowns and kind of go to the ground and then just beat her up there. I thought she won 2 out of the 3 rounds, Amanda, and Valentina won the third round. Yeah, the third round. I thought Valentina won the third round. And the second fight, I thought Valentina flat out won 3 rounds out of 5. Pretty easily. Like, there's really no way you can try and say that she did not win 3 rounds. No, she won. She won that fight. Like, the only reason that Amanda won that fight, which she didn't win that fight, but the only reason she won in terms of the judges was because, you know, she gave the illusion that she was more active. The fight was close, like, so, you know, I don't really have too much of an issue with Amanda getting the victory, because the fight was close. I thought Valentina just nicked one of the rounds and I gave it to her. Could have gone the other way if you look at it from a different perspective. So I can kind of understand why the judges gave that kind of verdict. And, you know, man, the fight with Priscilla Cachoeira, she almost killed that girl. Like, that shit was scary to watch. I got high the other day and I was smoking the joint, watching the fights and stuff. And damn, like, that put me in another dimension. Like, I was terrified to fight. Like, I'll be like, damn, I would not want to fight this girl. Like, hell no, I'd be terrified. Like, but looking at her other fights, like the Jennifer Maya fight, you know, that fight, she looked a little bit human in one of the rounds, but she dominated the fight. If you look at it as a complete finished product, she dominated the whole fight. Like, if you look at it from a objective point of view and you actually analyze each round, obviously everyone thought she won the fight, but everyone was like, oh damn, she looks human because she lost a round to Jennifer Maya, which Jennifer Maya is a tough contender. You know, she's not a bum, but, you know, it comes with the territory, man. But she dominated the fight. Really, she truly dominated the fight. The only reason anyone was saying it was close was because Jennifer Maya won literally 1 round. Like, and they're so used to Valentina just dominating everybody that they were so surprised that she lost 1 round, that it's kind of like confirmation bias a little bit, because you see this person constantly destroying all of their competition and then suddenly they have like a little bit of adversity and they're actually able to overcome it. You kind of want to see that person get tested, so you kind of oversell the person that's winning maybe 1 round and you're thinking, okay, you kind of hold that bias to the second round, so then you're kind of holding Valentina in a higher regard, so there's a higher bar for her to pass, like there's a higher benchmark. So if she doesn't meet the benchmark that she's set for her previous fights, then people are going to be like, okay, She looks human because they're not used to seeing her losing one round, even, which is a testament to her greatness. The fact that she can lose one round and everyone's freaking out kind of proves that she's a great fighter. Now, at bantamweight, let's get into her record at bantamweight. I really would have liked to see her fight Jermaine Durandamy, but Jermaine's a pretty good, pretty big girl. You know, fighting Jermaine Durandamy, I don't. That would be an interesting fight because she doesn't really shoot too many takedowns as a traditional wrestler at bantam. Like, I don't think she would be able to easily take. She's a good wrestler, fantastic. Like, she has good takedowns, but Jermaine's huge, big, rangy, tall. Like, you kind of have to have that size, and you kind of have to have similar size. Like, Jermaine's too big for her to like take her down. The thing about the Julianna Pena fight. Now let's look at the Julianna Pena fight. The Julianna Pena fight, arguably, I had Julianna up in that fight. I thought she was winning until she got caught with that submission, which the submission was more so because Julianna was just so. She got careless. She made a tactical error and she got caught. Just like Vicente Luque, the fight with Michael Chiesa. He made a tactical error and got caught in the darts, which is Vicente Luque's biggest weapon. That's his most favorable asset. That's the technique he uses to finish most of his fights. He is the best at that particular choke, which means you have to be a master at defending those kind of chokes. And Chiesa wasn't a master of that. He's a pretty good submission threat, and he has overall good submission defense, but not specific. Like against specialists, he kind of struggles. Submission specialists, he kind of struggles. Valentina's not really a submission specialist per se. She has good knowledge of submissions on the ground, and she's a good submission threat. But overall, she's not really the biggest submission threat. She's not like a submission threat when you look at Mackenzie Dern or something like that. Those kind of players. She's not as big a threat as a Mackenzie Dern. But Mackenzie Dern is a 5-time Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu champion, like so many different accolades. So being compared to Mackenzie Dern is already a big accomplishment in and of itself, because you're getting compared to this other great grappler, probably one of the best grapplers in the sport in the women's divisions, which is a testament to how great she is. And her ground game is elite, her striking is elite, her wrestling is elite. I mean, if you could look at Valentina and then you would think which part of her game is the weakest, man, I mean, she would have to fight. I mean, the toughest fight for Valentina Shevchenko would be someone that's a specialist in terms of wrestling and able to dictate where the fight goes. Doesn't have to have the best striking, is just a submission specialist and a good wrestler. That kind of person would pose some kind of challenge for her. Perhaps a striker that's pretty big. I think if she fights at bantamweight against women like Jermaine Durandamy, I think she could lose that fight potentially. Potentially a rematch with Julianna Pena would be interesting. But that's a pretty even fight still. Like Julianna just made a tactical error, so she just watches her P's and Q's and does her homework in the jiu-jitsu department. She can definitely go back and win that fight. It's just that she got careless because she thought, oh, I'm fighting a stand-up striker that doesn't have any jiu-jitsu threats on the ground, no submission threats. So she got overconfident. She didn't watch her P's and Q's. She zigged when she should have zagged, and she got caught. That's how it is, the game. That's the game of MMA. You make one mistake, it's a wrap. And I think a submission threat artist and a good wrestler, not an Amanda Nunes, or a good striker that's hard to take down, like a Jermaine Durandamy, would be a good fight for Valentina. That would be a tough fight, in my opinion, even though Jermaine has shown a propensity to get taken down and to have a weaker game on the bottom. Like, she does have a weaker submission game. She does. She definitely does. In terms of she has a weaker ground game for sure. So that's where, if Valentina had one way of winning that fight, would be to take her down. But she's not that good at takedowns at bantamweight. If you look at her bantamweight takedowns, who did she really take down at bantamweight? She took Julianna Pena down, but that was off the momentum of the knee. Like, looking at her record, okay, let's type in Val. Like, at bantamweight, she fought Julianna Pena, who else? Holly Holm, right? She fought Holly Holm. She took Holly Holm down. Yeah, that's true. But a Jermaine the Randomy fight, that would be like interesting. Like that would like kind of make my hair blow back a little bit, just a little bit, you know, not too much, but just a little bit. That would be interesting. A Jermaine the Randomy fight would be very interesting. She would take her head off, maybe. Who knows? But damn, she hasn't fought in like almost 2 years now, Jermaine. So it's like kind of hard to see her coming back. But that would be an interesting fight for me. Thank you guys for watching. I'm out. Peace.